Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's journey to basketball greatness began far from the spotlight. It started on a small basketball court in Wilmington, North Carolina, where a young boy named Michael discovered his love for the game. His early years were marked by a fierce determination that would define his entire career. Jordan wasn't always the tallest, nor the most naturally gifted, but what he had was an unparalleled work ethic and a drive that set him apart from everyone else. Jordan's early passion for basketball grew from his competitive spirit. He was raised in a household that valued hard work. His father, James, a stern but loving figure, pushed Michael to pursue excellence in everything he did. His mother, Dolores, instilled in him the values of persistence and integrity. But it was basketball that became the center of Michael's focus. He spent hours shooting hoops in his backyard, practicing until his hands bled, all in an attempt to outdo himself. He was not the best player on his high school team, but that didn't deter him. If anything, it fueled him to work harder. The sting of being cut from the varsity team as a sophomore became a pivotal moment in Michael's life. Instead of succumbing to defeat, he used it as motivation to prove himself. He poured everything into improving his skills, knowing that the only way to succeed was through relentless dedication. Despite his improvements, it wasn't always clear that Michael Jordan would make it to the NBA. In high school, his skills were growing, but so were the doubts of those around him. The coaches who had once dismissed him were now forced to take notice as he dominated local competitions. His growth was rapid, almost alarming, and with every dunk, every point, Jordan made it clear that his journey was far from over. By the time he was in his senior year, he was not just a standout player, he was a force to be reckoned with. Jordan's ability to rise to the occasion, to take over games when it mattered most, became his signature. College scouts were quickly taking notice, and soon, the University of North Carolina came calling. Jordan's time at UNC, under coach Dean Smith, marked the beginning of his ascent to basketball stardom. He was still learning, still growing, but the raw talent and determination that had propelled him forward in high school began to take shape at the collegiate level. As a freshman, he had a defining moment that would set the tone for his entire career, a clutch shot in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown. With seconds left on the clock, the ball was in his hands. Jordan sank the shot, giving UNC the championship and cementing his status as one of the most promising young talents in the game. It was more than just a game winner, it was a statement that Michael Jordan wasn't just going to be another player in the league. He was destined for greatness. After that moment, the basketball world began to take Jordan seriously. His transition to the professional game, however, was not without its hurdles. The NBA was already home to some of the best players in the world, like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Jordan was about to enter a league where competition wasn't just fierce, it was relentless. But Jordan had something those other players didn't, an insatiable hunger to be the best. He wasn't going to coast on natural talent. He was going to work harder than anyone else, day in and day out. The NBA didn't know what hit it when Jordan stepped onto the court as the Chicago Bulls' third overall pick in the 1984 draft. His rookie year was a revelation. Jordan exploded onto the scene, immediately making his presence felt. His athleticism was otherworldly, and his ability to score, both inside and out, set him apart from the rest. Jordan's game wasn't just about athleticism, though, it was about his fierce competitive spirit. He quickly became the centerpiece of a Bulls team that had struggled for years. His impact on the court was undeniable, but what truly set Jordan apart was his mindset. His drive to be the best was evident in every move he made. He wasn't satisfied with just being good, he wanted to be great. The numbers were impressive, but it was the way Jordan played that caught everyone's attention. Every game was a battle, and Jordan wasn't going to lose. Despite his individual brilliance, Jordan's early years with the Bulls were filled with frustration. The team wasn't built for championships. They were a collection of talented players, but they lacked the chemistry and cohesion to contend for titles. Jordan's individual performances were outstanding, but without the right pieces around him, the Bulls couldn't break through. The rivalry with the Detroit Pistons, led by the tough, physical bad boys, became a defining element of Jordan's early career. Time and again, Jordan found himself unable to get past the Pistons in the playoffs. They were a team that tested Jordan in every way possible, both physically and mentally. The battles were grueling, and for years, it seemed like Jordan's quest for a title was a distant dream. But Jordan never stopped believing in himself. He never allowed setbacks to derail his ambition. Every loss was a lesson. Every defeat fueled his drive. By the time the 1990-91 season came around, everything had clicked. The Chicago Bulls were no longer a team held back by individual brilliance. Under head coach Phil Jackson, the Bulls embraced the triangle offense, a system that emphasized teamwork and unselfish play. This new approach allowed Jordan to thrive, not just as a scorer, but as a leader. The addition of Scottie Pippen, a versatile and elite defender, gave Jordan the support he had long needed. Together, they formed the foundation of what would become one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history. The 1991 season was Jordan's breakthrough. He was no longer just an individual star, he was the leader of a team that could contend for championships. The Bulls cruised through the regular season, dominating opponents with their balanced play and relentless defense. When the playoffs arrived, Jordan's leadership was in full display. In the finals, the Bulls faced the Los Angeles Lakers, a team led by Magic Johnson, who had been the face of the NBA for a decade. Jordan was ready. He wasn't going to let another opportunity slip away. The Bulls swept the Lakers, and Jordan was named Finals MVP. It was his first championship, but it was only the beginning. The world had just witnessed the arrival of a new basketball legend, and there was no turning back. For Jordan, this championship was not just a personal achievement. It was the moment that confirmed everything he had worked for. Every hour spent in the gym, every sacrifice, every setback, had been worth it. He had proven that not only was he the best player in the world, but he could also lead a team to the top. The Chicago Bulls were no longer an afterthought, they were the new kings of the NBA, and Michael Jordan was their crown jewel. The dynasty was born, and the journey to greatness was just beginning. But even with the championship, Jordan knew that there was more work to do. His hunger had not been sated, and his vision of greatness had not been fully realized. The best was yet to come. The 1991 championship marked a turning point for Michael Jordan. It was the moment when everything came together for him and the Chicago Bulls. But Jordan's drive for greatness had only just begun. He was no longer just a player with individual talent, he was the undisputed leader of the most dominant team in the NBA. After the sweep of the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals, the basketball world finally acknowledged what Jordan had been asserting for years. He was not only the best player in the game, but he was capable of taking a team to the very top. But the question remained, could he sustain this success? Could he do it again? The 1991-92 season proved that the first championship was no fluke. The Bulls, under coach Phil Jackson, played with an efficiency and fluidity that few teams had ever matched. Jordan, now fully invested in Jackson's triangle offense, was a much more complete player. While still a scoring machine, he had become a more efficient playmaker, creating opportunities for teammates and allowing the Bulls' offense to flow naturally. The addition of key players like Steve Kerr and the continued development of Scottie Pippen gave the Bulls a depth that made them a formidable force. The 1992 season also marked the start of a new level of competition for Jordan. The league was evolving, and with each passing year, the caliber of opponents grew more difficult. The Chicago Bulls, though, were equipped for every challenge. The East was still dominated by teams like the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, but the Bulls had a unique weapon in Jordan. He was now at the peak of his powers, and his leadership was making the difference. In the 1992 Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls faced their old nemesis, the Detroit Pistons. The Bad Boys had been a thorn in Jordan's side for years, but now, Jordan and the Bulls were ready. The series was physical, as expected, but this time, the Bulls were prepared. With each game, Jordan took over, putting the Bulls in position to sweep the Pistons. The end of the Pistons' reign over the Eastern Conference was a symbolic passing of the torch. Jordan's greatness wasn't just a personal achievement, it had become something larger. He was now leading a team that could go toe-to-toe with anyone. The sweep of the Pistons felt like a personal victory for Jordan, but it also symbolized a shift in the balance of power in the NBA. The Bulls were now the team to beat. The 1992 NBA Finals against the Portland Trail Blazers were a showcase of Jordan's incredible skill and versatility. Jordan, fresh off his first championship, was determined to prove that his success wasn't a one-time event. He was ready to establish a dynasty. The series was competitive, but Jordan dominated. His performance in Game 1, where he scored 35 points in the first half, was a statement. By the end of the series, Jordan had cemented his place as the game's most unstoppable force. The Bulls won in 6 games, and Jordan was named Finals MVP for the second straight year. But what made Jordan's performance in the 1992 Finals so memorable wasn't just the way he played, but the way he changed the game. Jordan had already been known as an incredible scorer, but in the 1992 Finals, he showed a side of his game that many people hadn't seen before. He was unselfish. He knew when to pass, when to take over, and when to trust his teammates. His leadership on the court had grown, and the team that had once been Jordan's responsibility alone was now a unit capable of achieving greatness. Jordan wasn't just a one-man show anymore. He had brought his teammates along for the ride. The summer of 1992 saw Jordan's influence extend beyond the NBA. He was part of the original Dream Team that competed in the Barcelona Olympics, and the team's dominance was a further testament to Jordan's stature. As the world watched the Dream Team play, Jordan was at the center of it all. His leadership, his drive, and his competitive nature helped elevate the play of everyone around him. The 1992 Olympics became a turning point for basketball, with Jordan serving as the face of the sport on a global stage. He wasn't just an NBA superstar, he was a global ambassador for basketball. The impact of the Dream Team transcended basketball itself. The sport was now viewed by millions worldwide, thanks to Jordan's presence. Jordan's success on the international stage only heightened the expectations on him and the Bulls. The 1992-93 season began with a target squarely on the Bulls' backs. Defending champions often faced the most pressure, and Jordan was fully aware of the challenges ahead. Despite this, Jordan continued to play with a chip on his shoulder. His scoring remained prolific, but he was also focused on improving the team's overall play. The regular season was another dominant year for the Bulls, but there was an undeniable sense that Jordan and his teammates were only focused on one thing: the championship. The 1993 Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks proved to be one of the toughest challenges the Bulls had faced in their championship run. The Knicks, led by the physical and relentless Patrick Ewing, pushed the Bulls to the brink. The series was filled with hard-fought games, but Jordan, as he had done so many times before, elevated his game when it mattered most. In Game 5 of the series, Jordan scored 54 points, willing his team to a crucial victory. The Knicks, despite their best efforts, couldn't slow him down. Jordan's performance in this series was a testament to his resilience and his ability to deliver when his team needed him most. The 1993 NBA Finals against the Phoenix Suns were another proving ground for Jordan's greatness. The Suns were a strong team, led by Charles Barkley, but Jordan's intensity was unmatched. Despite strong performances from Barkley and the Suns, the Bulls triumphed in a thrilling 6-game series. Jordan, once again, was named Finals MVP, marking his 3rd consecutive championship and 3rd Finals MVP. This victory solidified the Bulls as a dynasty and confirmed Jordan's place as the most dominant player in the NBA. However, the pressures of maintaining such a level of success began to weigh on Jordan. He had won 3 consecutive championships, and while his success was undeniable, the grind of the season had taken its toll. In the middle of the 1993 season, Jordan shocked the world by announcing his retirement from basketball. The decision was driven by a mixture of factors: personal tragedy following the murder of his father, a growing sense of burnout, and the realization that he had accomplished everything he set out to do in the NBA. Jordan stepped away from the game, leaving behind a legacy that seemed impossible to follow. But even in his absence, Jordan's influence was felt throughout the basketball world. His time away from the game, his transition into baseball, and the eventual return to the NBA would serve as a new chapter in his journey. For now, however, the world was left to wonder what would come next for the greatest player to ever play the game. When Michael Jordan made his sudden departure from the NBA in 1993, it shocked the world. Here was the greatest basketball player on the planet, stepping away from the game just as he had led the Chicago Bulls to their third consecutive championship. For the sports world, Jordan's decision felt like the end of an era, and many wondered how the NBA, and especially the Bulls, would move forward without him. The reasons for Jordan's departure were complex. The tragic murder of his father, James Jordan, had a profound impact on him. His father had been his biggest supporter throughout his career, and his loss was devastating. At the same time, Jordan was mentally exhausted from the pressure of winning and the relentless spotlight. He had achieved everything he set out to do in basketball, winning 3 NBA championships in a row, earning 3 consecutive MVP awards, and building a legacy that few could ever hope to match. With his father gone and his mind worn from the constant grind of being the best, Jordan felt it was time to step away from the game and pursue something new. During his time away, Jordan sought solace in a new sport, baseball. He signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox and played for the Birmingham Barons, a Double-A affiliate. While many saw his transition to baseball as a publicity stunt or a sign that Jordan had lost his passion for basketball, it was a period of healing and personal growth for him. Baseball was an entirely different world, one where Jordan was not the center of attention, and his fame as a basketball icon didn't matter. It was a chance for him to prove to himself that he could be successful in a sport where he wasn't already the best. Jordan's baseball career was a learning experience. While he didn't have the natural talent to immediately excel at baseball the way he had with basketball, his work ethic and competitiveness allowed him to make steady progress. He struggled at the plate at first, but he kept pushing, practicing, and improving. His time in the minors was not about proving something to the world, but about proving something to himself, that he could tackle a new challenge and give it everything he had. Jordan wasn't ready to give up on the game of basketball, but baseball gave him a break, a chance to step away from the pressure that had been suffocating him for years. In the middle of the 1994 baseball season, the NBA world got an unexpected phone call. Michael Jordan, after a year and a half away from basketball, was ready to return. The decision wasn't just about missing the game. Jordan had realized that his love for basketball was too strong to stay away for good. The itch to play had been growing throughout his time in baseball, and when the call came, he knew that it was time to come back. It was as if the fire that had burned in him throughout his career was still alive, waiting to be reignited. Jordan's return to basketball in 1995 was met with excitement and anticipation, but also with skepticism. He had been away from the game for over a year, and his baseball career, while a success in its own right, hadn't been without its struggles. People wondered whether Jordan still had what it took to return to his elite level of play. To answer those questions, Jordan did what he had always done best: he went to work. His comeback wasn't perfect. In his first few games back, he showed flashes of his old brilliance, but also struggled at times. He was rusty, and the team was still adjusting to having him back. But one thing became clear very quickly: Jordan still had the ability to dominate when it mattered. His second game back, in which he scored 55 points against the New York Knicks, proved that he was still capable of reaching a level of performance that few others could match. The basketball world watched as Jordan once again returned to his rightful place at the top of the sport. Jordan's return also signaled a new beginning for the Chicago Bulls. Though they had continued to compete at a high level during his absence, they weren't the same team without him. His return to the lineup gave the Bulls the spark they needed to push for another championship. The team, which included key figures like Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, and the steady leadership of coach Phil Jackson was once again firing on all cylinders. The Bulls were a well-balanced, unselfish team, and with Jordan leading the way, they were ready to dominate the NBA once again. The 1995-96 season would go down in history as one of the most dominant in NBA history. The Bulls finished with a 72-10 record, the best in NBA history at the time, and stormed through the playoffs to win their fourth NBA championship in 6 years. Jordan was back at his peak, and he played a key role in the team's success. His ability to score, create for others, and lead by example were the driving forces behind the Bulls' historic season. The 1996 finals against the Seattle Supersonics were a statement. The Bulls, now fully reloaded with Jordan back in the fold, were nearly unstoppable. They swept through the finals, winning in 6 games, and Jordan was named Finals MVP for the 4th time in his career. The Bulls' dominance was evident in every game, and Jordan's performance in the finals was a testament to his greatness. It was clear that Jordan had come back with one goal in mind, to prove that he was still the best player in the world, and to prove that his place in history was secured. But even with this newfound success, Jordan's journey wasn't just about basketball. His return to the sport, his overcoming of the personal challenges he faced, and his ability to rise to the occasion were bigger than the game itself. Jordan's story was about resilience, about pushing through obstacles, and about rediscovering his love for the game he had conquered. His time in baseball had given him a new perspective on life and basketball, and when he returned, he was ready to take on the world once again. The 1995-96 season marked the beginning of another Bulls dynasty. Jordan, Pippen, and the rest of the Bulls were once again at the top of the NBA. The team was firing on all cylinders, with a renewed sense of purpose and a shared desire to win. Jordan's return wasn't just about his individual success, it was about the team coming together and achieving greatness. He had already established his place as the best player in the game, but now, his goal was to prove that greatness could be achieved through teamwork and leadership. The second phase of Michael Jordan's career was just as dominant as the first. With the 1996 championship under his belt, the Bulls dynasty was ready to continue. But while the road ahead was filled with promise, the journey was far from easy. There were still challenges to overcome, new rivalries to face, and personal obstacles to navigate. But with Jordan back in the fold, the basketball world knew one thing for sure: the best player on the planet was back, and he was hungry for more. The Chicago Bulls were back at the top, but Michael Jordan's hunger for success never dulled. After his triumphant return to basketball, he was determined not to let complacency creep into his game. The 1995-96 season had been a resounding success, but Jordan knew the road to greatness wasn't finished yet. The Bulls were on the verge of something truly special, but with each championship came the pressure to prove that their dominance wasn't a one-time thing. The 1996-97 season was filled with anticipation. The Bulls, with their 72-win record from the previous year, were again the team to beat. But despite their dominance, there were still doubts about their ability to maintain that level of performance. The league was growing, and teams were adjusting their strategies, trying to catch up to the Bulls dynasty. The Western Conference was especially tough, with teams like the Utah Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, and the Seattle Supersonics, still hungry for a shot at the title. The competition was fierce, and everyone wanted to take down the reigning champs. The Bulls' 1997-98 season would be one for the history books. From the start, it was clear that they were still the best team in the league, but this season was different. It wasn't just about winning the championship, it was about the emotional weight of potentially closing out a historic run. The team had already won 5 championships in 7 years, but this was going to be the last dance. The media, the fans, and even the players knew that this season would be the final ride for this particular version of the Chicago Bulls, and the pressure of that reality began to settle in. In the midst of all this, Michael Jordan had to navigate not only the physical demands of playing at the highest level but the psychological toll of playing what could very well be his last season. The Last Dance was more than just a catchy phrase, it became the theme of the season. This was a team that had already been through so much together, and the idea of it all coming to an end added a layer of intensity to every game. Yet, amid all the uncertainty, Jordan was determined to finish what he had started and prove, once again, that he was the best player in the world. The team's challenges in the 1997-98 season weren't just about opponents on the court. The internal dynamics of the team were under scrutiny. The organization, led by general manager Jerry Krause, had already begun to make decisions about the future of the team. Coach Phil Jackson's contract was set to expire at the end of the season, and despite the team's success, there was no guarantee that he would be returning. Jackson had been instrumental in guiding the Bulls to 5 championships, but the front office had already made it clear that this would be his final season. It created an underlying tension that permeated throughout the team. Would Jackson be able to manage the roster and lead them to one more championship under these trying circumstances? On the court, Jordan was his usual self, a relentless force, a competitor who showed no signs of slowing down. Despite being older and dealing with the physical demands of an NBA season, he still played at an elite level. His scoring ability, defensive prowess, and leadership never wavered. But this season was also about how Jordan was evolving as a leader. He had already won numerous championships, and now he was transitioning from a player who dominated through sheer talent to a player who also had the wisdom and experience to lead his teammates with a calm, focused demeanor. Jordan's leadership had always been about pushing his teammates to be better. He expected nothing less than excellence, but in 1997-98, there was a noticeable shift. He began trusting his teammates more. Scottie Pippen, after years of being in Jordan's shadow, had grown into one of the best all-around players in the league. The two had become an inseparable duo, complementing each other perfectly. The synergy between the two stars was undeniable, and they both knew that the stakes were high. This was their last chance to add another championship to their already illustrious careers. Jordan didn't just expect greatness from Pippen, he encouraged it, knowing that the only way the Bulls could win another title was if everyone played their part. The season was filled with ups and downs, and the competition never relented. The Bulls were able to fight through adversity and push past the challenges posed by teams like the Utah Jazz and the New York Knicks. Every game had a sense of urgency, and the playoff battles were especially fierce. But the true test came in the finals, where the Bulls faced the Utah Jazz for the second consecutive year. The 1998 NBA Finals were a hard-fought series, and once again, it was clear that this was a team with a singular goal, winning one more championship. The Jazz, led by Malone and Stockton, had already made their mark in the league, but they couldn't seem to get over the hump and capture that elusive title. They were determined to dethrone the Bulls, but the problem was, Jordan and the Bulls had something the Jazz didn't, an unmatched level of experience, drive, and an unshakable belief that they were destined for greatness. Game 6 of the 1998 Finals would become one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. With the Bulls trailing by 3 points late in the game, it was up to Jordan to make a play. In typical Jordan fashion, he delivered. He hit a jump shot with 5.2 seconds remaining, giving the Bulls a 1-point lead. The shot, now known as the last shot, was not just a game winner, it was the culmination of everything Jordan had built throughout his career, a career defined by clutch performances and an unyielding will to win. The shot secured Jordan's 6th NBA championship and his 6th Finals MVP. It also closed the chapter on the greatest dynasty the NBA had ever seen. The team, the coach, and the players all knew that this was the end of an era. The Bulls had achieved everything they had set out to do, and Michael Jordan had once again proven that when the stakes were the highest, he was the one to rise above. The final moments of the 1998 Finals were emotional for everyone involved. As the confetti fell and the celebrations began, Jordan took a moment to reflect on the journey. He had come a long way since his days in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the sacrifices, the hard work, and the dedication had paid off. He had led the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships, solidifying his place in NBA history as one of the greatest players of all time. As he walked off the court for the last time as a Chicago Bull, Jordan knew that his impact on the game would never fade. His legacy, built on perseverance, resilience, and a passion for winning, would remain a guiding force for future generations of players. His final season wasn't just about basketball, it was about everything he had achieved, everything he had overcome, and the lasting mark he had left on the sport. Jordan's career may have ended that night, but his influence on the game of basketball would endure forever. The Last Dance had concluded, but Michael Jordan's legacy would live on in the hearts of fans and the minds of players for years to come. After the 1998 season, when Michael Jordan's second retirement took the basketball world by storm, there was a sense of finality. The Chicago Bulls dynasty, built around Jordan's unmatched talent and leadership, had concluded. It wasn't just a series of championships, it was a cultural shift, an era of basketball greatness that had captured the hearts of fans worldwide. The absence of Jordan left a gaping void in the league, and as time passed, the question became not if Jordan would return, but when. Jordan's decision to retire again wasn't an easy one. Despite his unparalleled achievements, the constant pressure of maintaining a perfect image, coupled with the physical toll of competing at the highest level, had taken its toll. The brutal schedule of the NBA, combined with the emotional strain of managing expectations, had drained him. But beyond the exhaustion, there was a personal loss that weighed heavily on his heart. His father, James Jordan, had been tragically murdered in 1993. This incident, which sent shockwaves through his life, had forced Jordan to reassess everything, leading to his first retirement and his brief, unexpected career in baseball. When Jordan returned in 1995, after a brief but heartfelt sabbatical, his comeback didn't just change the course of his career, it revived the entire NBA. The Bulls, with Jordan back in the fold, regained their championship status. His leadership, paired with the Bulls' already strong roster, pushed them to victory once again. But in 1998, with his sixth championship secured, Jordan walked away, this time for good, or so it seemed. But even after his departure, the lure of competition and the void he left behind in the NBA never truly disappeared. The league moved on, with new stars like Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and a young LeBron James rising to prominence, but none could escape the gravitational pull of Michael Jordan's legacy. The debate over who was the greatest of all time, Jordan or his successors, only intensified in his absence. Yet, while others competed, Jordan's presence was still felt. He wasn't just a part of the game's past, his influence stretched far beyond it. In 2001, nearly 3 years after his retirement, Jordan surprised the basketball world again by coming out of retirement, this time not with the Chicago Bulls, but with the Washington Wizards. The decision raised eyebrows. Jordan was 38, an age when most players were winding down their careers. Yet, Jordan's love for the game, his competitive drive, and the undying passion for proving that he could still be the best were forces that he could not ignore. Jordan's move to Washington wasn't about trying to relive the glory days of his Chicago years. It was more personal than that. After the intense, emotional strain of the previous years, including the passing of his father, the grind of being the greatest, and the fatigue of his legendary career, Jordan was searching for something more. Washington, as an organization, was in desperate need of leadership. They had not been successful for years, and the franchise had a lack of identity. Jordan, seeing an opportunity to take on a new challenge, chose to step in. The Wizards weren't a championship contender when Jordan arrived, but the presence of the greatest player ever could certainly change things. Jordan's decision to join the Wizards raised questions. Could he still perform at the level that had made him a global icon? At the age of 38, could Jordan still dominate in a league that was younger and faster? The answer came quickly. Jordan was still Michael Jordan. He averaged 22.9 points per game in his first season, proving that while his athleticism had diminished, his basketball IQ, leadership, and ability to perform under pressure had not. Jordan wasn't the same player he had been in his prime, but he still had enough to impact the game. The year was filled with memorable performances, such as a 51-point game against the Charlotte Hornets, where Jordan showed that despite his age, he could still carry a team. Despite Jordan's individual brilliance, the Wizards' success was limited. The team struggled to make significant progress in the playoffs. While Jordan's presence had elevated the team's competitiveness, they were still far from being true contenders. The team's lack of a championship-caliber roster was evident, but Jordan's influence off the court was immeasurable. His leadership, his relentless work ethic, and his commitment to excellence made the younger players better, and his impact on the team extended far beyond just statistics. The young players on the Wizards, such as Richard Hamilton and Chris Webber, benefited from Jordan's mentorship, learning from the best about how to approach the game. But after 2 seasons with the Wizards, Jordan once again stepped away from the game for good, this time for good. In 2003, he retired for a second time, his NBA career coming to a close at the age of 40. Jordan's final season was a bittersweet farewell. The basketball world had witnessed an extraordinary career, one that had shaped the history of the NBA and left an indelible mark on the sport. Jordan had given everything to the game, and now he had decided it was time to step away. But while his playing days were over, his influence was far from gone. Jordan's retirement did not mark the end of his involvement in the game of basketball. He transitioned into an ownership role, becoming a majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. His focus shifted from playing to building a successful organization. Even though he wasn't on the court anymore, his presence was still felt. His competitive spirit, leadership qualities, and basketball knowledge became an asset to the franchise. Jordan had a new mission: to build a team that could achieve the same level of success that he had helped create in Chicago. Jordan's ownership of the Hornets, while not without challenges, reflected his ability to adapt and grow. He wasn't just building a franchise, he was shaping the future of the NBA. His position as an owner gave him a new platform to influence the game. Through his role, Jordan could continue to mentor the next generation of players, imparting the same wisdom, work ethic, and leadership skills that had defined his playing career. Beyond his role as an owner, Jordan's legacy continued to thrive through his off-court ventures. His Air Jordan brand with Nike had transcended the world of basketball. The iconic Jumpman logo became synonymous with greatness, not just in basketball, but in global culture. Jordan's influence extended far beyond the NBA, as his brand represented success, excellence, and aspiration. Young athletes across the world wanted to emulate Jordan, not just because of his skills, but because of the lifestyle and mentality he represented. Michael Jordan's impact on basketball, on sports, and on culture was undeniable. He had changed the way the game was played and viewed. He had taken the NBA from a niche sport to a global phenomenon. His brand, his success, and his unparalleled greatness helped redefine what it meant to be a professional athlete. In his retirement, Jordan had become a symbol of more than just basketball. He had become a living example of what it meant to push the boundaries of what was possible and to elevate those around you. His story was not just one of individual achievement, it was a story of greatness, sacrifice, and the legacy of someone who changed the game forever. Michael Jordan's second retirement was the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. Though his time on the basketball court had ended, his influence would continue to shape the game for decades to come. Through his leadership, his mentorship, and his global influence, Michael Jordan's story was far from over. His legacy was eternal, and it would continue to inspire the next generation of athletes, leaders, and dreamers. Michael Jordan's return to the NBA in 2001 shocked the sports world. After stepping away from the game in 1999, following his second retirement, Jordan's comeback was a storyline that no one had expected. The basketball world had moved on, the Chicago Bulls dynasty was a distant memory, and younger stars like Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan were taking center stage. But when Jordan decided to come out of retirement at 38 years old, it wasn't about reliving his glory days, it was about proving to himself, and to the world, that he could still compete at the highest level. The Washington Wizards weren't a championship team when Jordan arrived. In fact, they had been struggling for years, never able to find the right mix of players or leadership. But Jordan wasn't joining the Wizards to win another title, he was joining because the game had called him back. After spending a season and a half away from basketball, Jordan wasn't content simply watching the game he had dominated for so long from the sidelines. He wanted to compete again, and Washington was where he chose to do it. When Jordan arrived, the Wizards were in the midst of rebuilding, and his arrival instantly made them relevant again. The energy around the team shifted. The media attention, the fans, and the younger players on the team all felt the weight of Jordan's presence. For the young players, playing with Jordan was a dream come true, but it was also a massive challenge. He wasn't just another star, he was the standard. Jordan's work ethic was legendary, and he expected nothing less than excellence from everyone around him. In his first season with the Wizards, Jordan didn't just show up to the arena to play basketball, he showed up to lead. He didn't back down from the challenge of playing in a league that had evolved significantly since he last played. Players were faster, stronger, and more skilled than ever before, but Jordan wasn't intimidated. His skills may have eroded slightly with age, but his mental toughness, his basketball IQ, and his leadership were still unmatched. He was still Michael Jordan, the player who had defined a generation of basketball fans. The season wasn't without its challenges. Jordan's body, while still in incredible shape for his age, didn't recover as quickly as it once had. Injuries became a familiar part of his life as he battled through the grind of an 82-game season. Yet, despite his physical struggles, he played with the same intensity and desire that had always fueled him. Jordan averaged 22.9 points per game in his first season with the Wizards, proving that even at 38 years old, he was still one of the best players on the court. But the season wasn't all about statistics. It was about leadership, something Jordan had always excelled at. His presence on the court transformed the Wizards. He pushed his teammates to improve, just as he had done with the Bulls. The younger players, like Richard Hamilton and Chris Webber, were forced to step up their games. They quickly realized that playing with Jordan meant giving everything they had. It wasn't just about basketball, it was about understanding the mental and emotional aspects of the game, learning how to perform under pressure, and embracing the responsibility of success. Even though the Wizards didn't make it to the playoffs in Jordan's first season, the impact he had on the team was clear. His return to the game was never just about statistics or championships, it was about his love for the game, his leadership, and his ability to raise the level of everyone around him. It was a reminder that greatness isn't just about winning titles, it's about setting a standard for what it means to be a professional. Michael Jordan didn't just play the game, he redefined it. Jordan returned for a second season with the Wizards in 2002, but the team's struggles continued. Despite his individual brilliance, the Wizards weren't able to find the necessary pieces to contend for a title. Jordan's second season was marred by frustration, not only from the team's performance but also from his own body. The injuries were taking a toll, and Jordan, now 39, was beginning to feel the physical effects of playing a full NBA season. His numbers, though still impressive, began to dip. But what hadn't changed was his drive to win, his fierce competitive nature, and his desire to push through any challenge. Jordan's second season with the Wizards wasn't as successful as his first, but it wasn't without moments of brilliance. He still managed to put up big numbers, including a memorable game where he scored 51 points against the Charlotte Hornets. It was a game that reminded everyone just how great Jordan still was, even as the years caught up with him. Despite the individual success, however, the Wizards fell short of the playoffs once again. By the end of the 2002-2003 season, Jordan had made the decision to retire for a second time. His time with the Wizards, while a fascinating chapter in his career, wasn't the fairy tale ending that fans had hoped for. The Wizards didn't win a championship, and Jordan's individual brilliance couldn't lift the team to the next level. But his second stint in the NBA was never about closing out with another title. It was about his love for the game and his desire to show the world that he could still compete at the highest level, even if it wasn't for another championship. Jordan's decision to retire again, this time for good, was a bittersweet moment for basketball fans around the world. The player who had changed the game, the player who had defined a generation, was stepping away once again. His legacy, however, was already secure. Jordan had redefined what it meant to be a professional athlete. He had taken the game of basketball to heights no one could have imagined. His championships, his scoring titles, his clutch performances, and his unparalleled leadership had left an indelible mark on the NBA and on sports in general. In his final season, Jordan had proven that greatness doesn't have an expiration date. Even in his 39th year, he was still Michael Jordan, still capable of dominating the game when he needed to. His time with the Wizards may not have been as glamorous as his years with the Bulls, but it was still a testament to his love for the game and his determination to keep pushing, to keep striving for excellence, no matter what. Jordan's final retirement in 2003 marked the end of one of the most legendary careers in the history of professional sports. He had given everything to the game, and the game had given him everything in return. But while his time on the court had ended, his legacy would continue to shape the NBA and inspire generations of players to come. Michael Jordan wasn't just the greatest basketball player to ever live, he was a symbol of what it meant to achieve greatness. And even after his retirement, his influence would remain as strong as ever. Michael Jordan's retirement in 2003 felt like the closing of a chapter, yet even in his absence, his influence on the game of basketball remained profound. The years that followed would see the NBA continue to evolve, but Jordan's legacy would remain a constant measure of greatness. Though he was no longer actively playing, the mark he left on the sport wasn't just in the trophies, records, or accolades, but in the way he shaped the culture of basketball, both within the league and outside of it. During his final season with the Washington Wizards, Jordan had proven that age was just a number. Even at 39, after years of playing through injuries and the wear and tear of an unparalleled career, he was still able to put up numbers that rivaled those of players much younger than him. He had transcended the game in a way that few athletes ever do. His return to basketball wasn't simply a nostalgic attempt to reclaim his former glory, it was a statement about resilience, determination, and love for the game. Even without the championship rings and accolades that he had accumulated during his time with the Bulls, Jordan was still Michael Jordan, and that alone made his second act in the NBA fascinating. After retiring for the second time, Jordan continued his involvement in the basketball world, though in a different capacity. He shifted his focus to a role that many didn't expect from him: team ownership. In 2010, Jordan became the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets, taking on the responsibility of not just running a team, but reshaping an entire organization. It was a different challenge from what he was used to. As a player, he was used to leading by example on the court, demanding perfection from himself and his teammates. Now, as an owner, he was tasked with making critical decisions off the court, decisions that would affect the future of the team. His ownership of the Hornets marked a new chapter in Jordan's life, and it also highlighted the depth of his understanding of the game. He wasn't just a businessman trying to profit from the sport he loved, he was a former player using his knowledge, experience, and passion to build something that could bring success to the franchise. Jordan was intent on cultivating a winning culture, one where hard work, discipline, and a commitment to excellence would be the foundation of the team. The Hornets were far from being a championship contender when he took over, but Jordan had seen firsthand the impact of leadership, and he brought that mentality into his ownership role. Even in this new phase of his career, Jordan's presence was as commanding as ever. His involvement in the daily operations of the Hornets wasn't just symbolic, it was hands-on. He spent time with the team, mentored young players, and used his status as the NBA's greatest player to help bring attention to the franchise. But his leadership wasn't just about being a figurehead, it was about making decisions that would build the team into a competitor. Jordan's goal was to turn the Hornets into a playoff-caliber team, and over the years, he began to make the moves necessary to make that happen. While the Hornets were still in the midst of a rebuilding phase, Jordan's work as an owner was starting to show signs of success. Under his leadership, the team began to make progress, securing draft picks, making key acquisitions, and developing a solid team foundation. The Hornets had not yet reached championship contention, but they had started to build a culture that mirrored the values Jordan had lived by during his playing days: determination, resilience, and the pursuit of excellence. The Hornets' development under Jordan's leadership was slow, but it was steady. As a former player, Jordan understood that winning didn't happen overnight. It took time, patience, and a commitment to the process. Despite the growing success of the Hornets, the debate over Michael Jordan's place in basketball history continued to dominate sports conversations. The question of who was the greatest player of all time, Jordan or LeBron James, was one that often made headlines. While LeBron's achievements and skills were undeniable, Jordan's impact on the game could not be overstated. LeBron had been molded by the lessons of Jordan's career, learning from his work ethic, his mental toughness, and his leadership style. For many fans and analysts, Jordan still held the title of greatest player to ever play the game. His 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and unparalleled ability to perform in clutch moments made him the measuring stick by which all others were judged. What made Jordan's legacy so special wasn't just his championships or his individual accolades, it was his ability to inspire others to push beyond their limits. He set a standard that every player entering the league felt they had to live up to. The mentality that Jordan had brought to the game, the unrelenting drive to be the best, had shaped the way the NBA was played. His competitive nature, his refusal to accept anything less than greatness, and his ability to rise to the occasion when the stakes were highest became the blueprint for future stars. Kobe Bryant often spoke about how Jordan was his mentor, how he studied Jordan's game and tried to replicate it in his own career. LeBron James, too, acknowledged Jordan's influence on his game and approach to basketball. Beyond the basketball court, Jordan's influence was just as far-reaching. His iconic partnership with Nike and the creation of the Air Jordan brand had revolutionized the sneaker industry. The Air Jordan shoes became a cultural symbol, transcending basketball and reaching fans across the globe. Jordan wasn't just a basketball player, he was a global icon, someone whose name and image were instantly recognizable around the world. The popularity of Air Jordans had a profound effect on the sneaker culture, leading to a new era of athlete-driven brands and endorsements. His brand represented more than just a pair of shoes, it represented excellence, success, and the pursuit of greatness. Jordan's legacy continued to grow, not just through his own accomplishments, but through the way he had changed the game. The impact he had on the NBA, and on the world of sports in general, was immeasurable. He had taken the game of basketball to new heights, both as a player and as a global ambassador. His story was one of perseverance, of overcoming obstacles, and of redefining what it meant to be great. While Jordan's time on the court had ended, his influence on the game of basketball remained just as strong. His ownership of the Hornets, his mentorship of young players, and his ongoing legacy as the greatest player to ever play the game continued to inspire new generations of basketball fans and athletes. Even in retirement, Jordan remained the benchmark for success, the example that others tried to emulate. His place in history was secure, not just as the greatest player to ever play the game, but as the player who changed everything about how the game was played and how it was perceived by the world. Michael Jordan's story had come full circle. He had been the young boy with big dreams in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he had become the greatest player the NBA had ever seen. But his legacy was about more than just basketball. It was about how his influence shaped the culture of the game, how his drive to be the best inspired future generations, and how his passion for the game never truly faded, even after he hung up his sneakers. His journey, both on and off the court, was a testament to what it takes to reach the top, and his legacy would continue to inspire for years to come. As Michael Jordan's ownership role with the Charlotte Hornets evolved, he transitioned into a new chapter of his life, far from the court that had once been his kingdom. Yet, the competitive fire that had fueled his legendary career never went out. It manifested in his ownership style, in his approach to building a successful team, and in his dedication to making the Hornets a legitimate playoff contender. However, this new phase of Jordan's career was not without challenges. While the Hornets showed gradual improvement, the team still lacked the necessary pieces to compete with the league's elite. In the midst of these growing pains, Jordan's leadership was always evident. He was still very much involved in every aspect of the organization. His decisions as an owner were always guided by the same principles that had shaped his playing career: a focus on excellence, a commitment to winning, and an unwavering belief that no challenge was too big. But as the Hornets struggled to find success on the court, there were those who questioned whether Jordan's understanding of the game from a player's perspective translated well to a front office role. The transition from being a player to a businessman had its ups and downs, but the basketball world knew that the same mentality that had driven Jordan to 6 championships would eventually lead him to success as an owner. Jordan's tenure with the Hornets was a mixture of triumphs and setbacks. There were flashes of brilliance, like when the team made it to the playoffs in 2014, but the journey was long and at times frustrating. In the highly competitive NBA landscape, where teams like the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs dominated the league, it was clear that the Hornets had a long road ahead. Yet, Jordan never lost sight of the big picture. Despite not winning a title with the Hornets, his impact on the franchise was undeniable. He reshaped the team's culture, instilling a sense of professionalism and competitive spirit that the franchise had been missing. His presence alone helped bring the Hornets to the forefront of the league, even if they were not consistently competing for championships. Off the court, Jordan's brand continued to grow. His partnership with Nike and the global success of the Air Jordan line were emblematic of his continued influence. The shoes, once simply a performance sneaker, had evolved into a cultural phenomenon. Air Jordans were a status symbol, a piece of memorabilia, and a cultural marker that transcended basketball. The success of the brand played a crucial role in elevating Jordan's place in history, not just as a basketball player, but as a business icon. Yet, as his brand expanded and his legacy solidified, Jordan never stopped being a competitor. Whether he was on the basketball court or making decisions for the Hornets, the core of who Jordan was remained the same. He was driven by the desire to win. As an owner, he wasn't just a passive figurehead, he was actively involved in shaping the future of the team, making decisions on player acquisitions, trades, and the overall direction of the franchise. His ability to understand the game from both a player's and owner's perspective allowed him to make decisions that others might not have seen coming. He wasn't content with just being the face of the team, he was fully invested in its success. But even as Jordan continued to make moves behind the scenes and invest in the Hornets, his time in the spotlight gradually began to fade. The NBA had evolved since Jordan's last championship, and the game had changed. Players were faster, stronger, and more skilled than ever before. The rise of younger stars like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant shifted the focus of the league, and it seemed as though Jordan's dominance, while unmatched, had become a relic of the past. New rivalries were being formed, and new stories were emerging, but Jordan's shadow still loomed large. The debate over who was the greatest of all time continued to rage, and even though Jordan was retired, he remained the standard by which all players were measured. As Jordan's career as a player became a distant memory, his impact on the game remained ever-present. The culture he helped create in the NBA, one defined by competition, excellence, and relentless pursuit of greatness, was now a part of the league's DNA. The players who followed him had grown up watching him, emulating his moves, and adopting his mentality. The legacy of Michael Jordan was carried forward by the likes of LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and others, who viewed him not just as a hero, but as the player they aspired to be. Even as the debate over who was the greatest player of all time continued, there was no denying the significance of Jordan's contributions to the game. His 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and numerous records were unparalleled. But it wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the way he transformed the game, about how he made the NBA a global phenomenon. Jordan's style, his charisma, and his ability to rise to the occasion in clutch moments set him apart from everyone else. He wasn't just the best player, he was the face of a generation, the one whose greatness inspired countless others. In a sense, Michael Jordan's legacy was not just about the trophies or the accolades. It was about how he made people believe that anything was possible. He gave hope to a generation of kids who dreamed of playing in the NBA, and he showed them that with enough dedication, enough work, and enough heart, greatness could be achieved. His influence extended far beyond basketball. The way he marketed himself, the way he turned basketball into a global spectacle, and the way he conducted himself off the court changed the landscape of sports forever. As the years passed, Jordan's role as an owner and businessman continued to grow, but his connection to the game of basketball remained as strong as ever. Even though his days of dominating on the court were behind him, his understanding of the game and his passion for it remained intact. His role as a mentor to the next generation of players, both within the Hornets organization and across the league, was just as important as his on-court success. He wasn't just shaping a team, he was shaping the future of the game itself. For Jordan, the journey had never been just about winning championships or collecting awards. It had been about something deeper, a desire to push himself to the absolute limits, to achieve greatness, and to inspire others to do the same. Whether as a player, an owner, or a mentor, his mission had always been the same, to be the best, and to help others realize that they too could reach the highest heights. And so, while Jordan's playing career was long over, his influence on the NBA continued to echo through the years. The debates about his place in history, his records, and his legacy were ongoing, but the truth remained: Michael Jordan had changed the game of basketball in ways that no one else could. His legacy was about more than just the numbers. It was about the mentality, the attitude, and the relentless drive to be the best. As time went on, new stars emerged, new dynasties formed, and the NBA continued to evolve, but Michael Jordan's impact remained an integral part of the fabric of the league. His legacy would never fade. He had redefined greatness in a way that no one else ever could, and his place in basketball history was forever secured, not just as the greatest player to ever play the game, but as a symbol of what it meant to strive for excellence, to fight for greatness, and to inspire the world. As the years passed after Michael Jordan's second retirement, his influence on the game of basketball never waned. The Chicago Bulls dynasty was no longer, and the NBA had evolved, but Jordan's shadow still loomed large over the league. With younger stars like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James emerging, the question of who was the greatest of all time remained a hot topic of debate, and Jordan was still the gold standard by which all others were measured. Even though he wasn't on the court anymore, his impact on the game of basketball remained profound. Jordan's role had shifted from player to owner, and in 2010, he became the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. It was a new chapter for a man who had dominated basketball in every way possible. But this transition to ownership came with its own challenges. While Jordan had proven himself time and again on the court, the world of team ownership was different. As a player, he had been driven by the pure desire to win, to perform at the highest level, and to ensure his team's success. Now, as an owner, he had to approach the game from a business perspective, overseeing a franchise and managing its long-term direction. The Hornets were far from being a playoff contender when Jordan took over. The team had struggled to find success for years and was in desperate need of a change in direction. Jordan's approach was to bring the same mentality to the ownership role that he had as a player. He understood that success wasn't immediate; it took time, patience, and the right combination of players, coaches, and organizational vision. He had built his career around perseverance, and now, as an owner, that would be his guiding principle. Though his ownership of the Hornets did not immediately result in championships, his involvement in the franchise brought a renewed sense of purpose and professionalism. The presence of Michael Jordan alone elevated the team. Young players in the organization had the opportunity to learn from one of the greatest basketball minds to ever play the game. Jordan wasn't just a figurehead; he was a hands-on owner, watching every game, making key decisions, and continuing to mentor the players. His competitive spirit was infectious, and his legacy was one of excellence. Despite his legendary career, Jordan's role with the Hornets was not without its challenges. His presence did not instantly transform the team into a contender, and the pressure of being Michael Jordan, the player who had defined the NBA for a decade, was sometimes a heavy burden to carry. But the very fact that he had taken on the role of owner, and not just another investor, spoke volumes about his commitment to the game. Jordan wasn't interested in merely holding a seat at the table; he wanted to make an impact. And though the team's fortunes were far from a sure thing, his leadership in the front office was making a difference in shaping the future of the franchise. Jordan's involvement with the Hornets was not just about team building; it was also about the culture of basketball itself. He knew that his legacy as a player had given him a platform to influence the game in a way few others could. His presence in the front office signaled to the basketball world that he was still a key player in shaping the NBA's future. By helping to guide a new generation of players, Jordan continued to exert influence over the league even after his playing days had ended. His vision for the game went beyond just winning titles. It was about instilling the right values in the players and shaping the culture of the NBA to reflect the principles of discipline, hard work, and relentless competition that had defined his own career. While Jordan was making strides with the Hornets, his influence in basketball culture was still as relevant as ever. His partnership with Nike and the global success of the Air Jordan brand had transformed him into more than just a basketball player. He had become a cultural icon. Air Jordans were no longer just shoes, they were a symbol of success and aspiration, worn not just by athletes but by fans across the world. His influence on sneaker culture and his ability to transcend the sport had changed how athletes were marketed and viewed in the public eye. Jordan's brand represented more than just a product, it represented a mindset. And that mindset, focused on greatness, discipline, and the pursuit of excellence, had permeated every aspect of the game. As the debate over Jordan's place in NBA history raged on, it became clear that his legacy was about more than just championships or accolades. He had redefined what it meant to be great, and his impact on the sport had been far-reaching. For future generations of players, Jordan was the ultimate example. Kobe Bryant, who often credited Jordan as his inspiration, tried to replicate Jordan's work ethic, approach to the game, and competitive fire. LeBron James, too, has spoken frequently about how Jordan's greatness shaped his own journey to basketball stardom. Though the NBA was no longer defined solely by Jordan, his influence remained a touchstone for every player who followed in his footsteps. The conversation about who was the greatest player of all time would continue for years to come. While LeBron James and others have made their case, Jordan's place at the top of the mountain remains unchallenged for many. His dominance on the court was unparalleled, but it was his mentality, his drive to push beyond what others thought possible, and his ability to perform in the clutch that set him apart. He didn't just win games, he changed the way basketball was played. His ability to take over games in crucial moments, to inspire his teammates, and to elevate the entire level of competition around him were qualities that few, if any, have ever matched. And so, even though Jordan's time on the court was long over, his influence continued to shape the NBA in ways that few could have predicted. From his ownership of the Hornets to his ongoing impact on the culture of basketball, Jordan's legacy was far-reaching. He had not just been a player who won championships, he was a player who built a legacy that continues to resonate. His influence extended beyond the confines of the court and into the broader world of sports and culture. The way athletes, both current and future, viewed success, competition, and personal growth had been shaped by Jordan's example. In his later years, Jordan's story was no longer just about the man who had dominated the NBA. It was about how that man had used his position to leave a lasting mark on the game, to shape the way basketball was played and perceived, and to influence a generation of players who saw him as the ultimate standard. His legacy was not just about his championships or his MVP awards. It was about the mentality that drove him to be great and the example he set for those who came after him. Michael Jordan's impact on basketball will never be forgotten. He had redefined the game, setting a standard that future generations of players will continue to strive for. Even in his retirement, even as an owner rather than a player, Jordan's influence remains an indelible part of the game. His story is one of perseverance, of excellence, and of leadership that has shaped the sport in ways no one could have predicted. While the NBA may have changed and evolved, Michael Jordan's legacy will forever be intertwined with its success and growth. Michael Jordan's final years as an active player were the pinnacle of his storied career, but his departure from the game in 1998 felt like the closing of a monumental chapter in NBA history. Yet, the story of Michael Jordan did not end with his second retirement. His influence on the game, his ability to inspire, and the legacy he left behind were far from finished. Even after stepping away from basketball as a player, Jordan's impact continued to grow, reaching new heights that few athletes ever achieve. When Jordan retired for the second time after leading the Chicago Bulls to their sixth NBA championship, it seemed like the perfect ending to a legendary career. 6 championships in 8 years, 5 MVP awards, and countless accolades had solidified his place as the greatest basketball player in history. The league, fans, and even his teammates understood the magnitude of what he had accomplished, and many assumed that his departure would mark the end of an era. The NBA had to move forward, and the players who followed in Jordan's wake began to carve out their own legacies. However, Jordan's departure from the court didn't mean his connection to the sport was over. His desire to continue being involved in basketball remained strong, and it was clear that his competitive spirit hadn't faded. In 2001, when Jordan made the surprising decision to return to the NBA, it was a move that captured the attention of not just basketball fans, but of the sports world at large. Jordan's return with the Washington Wizards wasn't motivated by the desire to reclaim his championship status, but rather by his undying love for the game and his belief that he still had something to offer. Though he was no longer the physically dominant force he had been in his prime, Jordan's presence in the NBA once again demonstrated his unparalleled work ethic, leadership, and ability to inspire others. Jordan's time with the Wizards was different from his years with the Bulls, but it was still remarkable in its own right. While the Wizards did not contend for championships during Jordan's second stint in the league, his leadership and impact on the team were immeasurable. He played with the same intensity, pushing his teammates to be better, teaching them the importance of dedication and sacrifice. Jordan's influence extended far beyond the basketball court. It was his relentless drive, his unwavering commitment to excellence, that had become his true legacy. Even in his later years, Jordan remained a symbol of greatness, an example for future generations to follow. After retiring for a second time in 2003, Jordan's role in the game of basketball didn't end. Instead, he turned his attention to a new chapter of his career, ownership. In 2010, Jordan became the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets, a franchise that had long struggled to find its footing in the NBA. The decision to take on the responsibility of running a team was not one that Jordan made lightly. It was a reflection of his lifelong passion for basketball and his belief in the potential of the game to transcend beyond just the players on the court. While his tenure as an owner was met with its own set of challenges, Jordan's leadership style remained unchanged. The same determination, focus, and drive that had made him a legend on the court were now applied to building the Hornets into a successful team. As an owner, Jordan was able to bring his basketball expertise and experience to a new level, influencing the culture of the franchise and shaping its future. While the Hornets didn't immediately become championship contenders, Jordan's impact on the team was undeniable. He had already revolutionized the game as a player, and now he was doing the same as a businessman. Even as his involvement with the Hornets continued, Jordan's legacy remained as strong as ever. The debate about who was the greatest player of all time continued to be one of the most discussed topics in sports. But no matter how many titles LeBron James or other modern players won, Jordan's place in history was secure. His influence on the game of basketball was unparalleled. He had defined an era of excellence, transformed the NBA into a global phenomenon, and set a standard of greatness that future generations of athletes would strive to reach. Jordan's success wasn't just about his individual achievements or his dominance on the court. It was about the mentality he brought to the game. The way he approached each game, each practice, each challenge, he had set the bar for what it meant to be the best. He didn't just play the game of basketball, he changed it. His work ethic, his desire to be the best, his refusal to back down in the face of adversity, these were the qualities that defined Jordan's career and made him a true icon. And even as the league moved on without him, his influence remained a constant. In the years following his retirement, Jordan became a symbol of what it meant to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness. He had turned adversity into fuel for his success, using every setback as an opportunity to push himself harder. Whether it was being cut from his high school basketball team or facing the tough competition in the NBA, Jordan had always found a way to rise above. His story was not just about basketball, it was about life. It was about never giving up, never accepting defeat, and always striving to be better. This mentality, more than anything else, was the essence of Michael Jordan. The impact of Jordan's career extended far beyond the boundaries of the NBA. He had transcended the game, becoming a global icon. His partnership with Nike had created a legacy that stretched beyond basketball and into popular culture. The Air Jordan brand became a symbol of success, aspiration, and excellence, worn by athletes and non-athletes alike. The Jordan brand became one of the most influential and recognizable brands in the world, a testament to his ability to leverage his fame and success into something even larger. As time passed, Jordan's influence on the game of basketball only grew stronger. The players who followed him, whether it was Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, or others, carried forward the lessons he taught them. They were inspired by his work ethic, his mentality, and his ability to perform when it mattered most. Jordan's legacy was not only in the records he set or the championships he won, it was in the way he changed the game, in the way he inspired others to be better, and in the way he became a symbol of excellence and greatness. Though Jordan's playing days were long behind him, his impact on the NBA and the world of sports remains as powerful as ever. He changed the game, built a brand, and inspired generations of athletes. His legacy is a lasting one, not just because of his dominance on the court, but because of the character, the work ethic, and the mentality he brought to everything he did. Michael Jordan was more than just a basketball player. He was a legend whose story will continue to be told for generations to come. His legacy will live on, not only in the NBA, but in the hearts of fans and athletes around the world, as a symbol of greatness and what it means to be the best.